This is the Into the Paddock podcast.
It was a big wreck for Bamber and Galale. Both cars hit both barriers, or one car hit each barrier. That necessitated quite a lengthy period of barrier repair. The wreck happened with about an hour 45 remaining in the race, and it very quickly got to within, I think it got down to as low as half an hour remaining before we found out what was going to happen. And we all kind of assumed as the repairs were going on, oh, this race is going to end under red flag. What a shame. But, I don't think there were too many people that were going to be particularly unhappy with that, because barrier repair is something that you just can't argue with. Like, it's not like there isn't this subjectiveness about, oh, we're not racing because of rain. If you haven't got a barrier there, you can't fucking race. However, then the god showed up, Eduardo Freitas, who gets the Into the Paddock podcast Badass Motherfucker of the Week award for doing what none of us realized was a thing, yet the rules and regulations do say that he can do this. He just decided to add back onto the race the amount of time they'd spent under the red flag. Well, they just reset the race back to the point where the red flag had come out. So all of a sudden, we thought we were going to end the race under red, and we had another hour and 40 minutes of racing left to go.
Amazing.
For the fans, and pretty much 90% of the grid in Spa, probably the best decision that's ever been made in an FIA competition. Not a high bar, admittedly, but never mind. But there was a group who weren't particularly happy with this, and that was, of course, the people leading the race at the time, who were set to profit from the red flag coming out. Now, Ferrari were particularly pissed off about this, and they even protested. And it was immediately rejected because of said regulation, where the race director is allowed to modify the race distance should he see fit. But I think when you add I can see why Ferrari were annoyed, because it wasn't really a scenario that we even knew could happen. And then when you add on top of that the whole the heavy BOP heading into the race, the fact that they still got a pole by half a second and then lost it for being a kilogram underway, you could see it's been a bit of a frustrating race for Ferrari, especially when they had the quickest car in Spa and they didn't win the race. Spoiler alert. They had the quickest car in Imola and they threw it away. It's getting quite frustrating for them.
It's got to be, but thank God for being consistently inconsistent there, Mr. FIA. I mean, but what a roller coaster week! What a roller coaster of a week, I guess, for these guys, right? It's like up and down and up and down. Are we going to stop? Are we going to start? What's going to happen, right? So yeah, shitty time for them.
I think this is the best call I've seen in any FIA sanctioned series. I mean, we know that it's in the rule books. They can basically say the race director can do what he wants, and the only guiding regulation in this case was he can't make the race, instead of 6 hours in total length, he can't make it 10 hours for the heck of it. So he just reinstated the time that they had lost, which is the ultimate move by someone who loves racing, who's in a position to officiate races. Like Eduardo Freitas, we already praise him endlessly with his common sense and no nonsense approach to race direction, and this just puts him over the top, just greatest race official ever. And I do feel a little bit for Ferrari, but at the same time, we've seen safety cars get called at the worst opportunities for cars, depending on strategy. This is just a really extended safety car, and they were on the wrong side of that strategy call, because the Jota Porsche and I believe the Proton Porsche, they both had not pit. They both had pit just before. The 6 Porsche had just pit before the Cadillac incident, and everyone else hadn't. So they were kind of in the catbird seat. But this whole thing was just a huge dub. Like you said earlier with the Iron Dames getting pole, Eduardo Freitas adding the race time back to this race, everybody loved that.
Yeah. And that's where the main difference is. You compare Formula One to the World Endurance Championship. If there's a red flag in Formula One, you're allowed to work on the cars. You can refuel. Well, you can't refuel in Formula One, but you can put new tires on, etc. Because of the way the FIA regulations work, all the teams still had to come in for their pit stops once the race restarted. So as you said, because the 12 and the 6 had pitted just beforehand, they gained a pit stop on everyone, and ultimately they ended up 1-2. We'll talk more about that in a moment. So yeah, I could see why Ferrari were pissed, but as you said, JD, safety cars happen all the time in inopportune circumstances for one team and amazing circumstances for another. It's a part of motorsport. You've got to be lucky and good. You've got to be able to capitalize on whatever is thrown your way. It sucks, but I'm sure over their years, Ferrari have benefited from many other scenarios across motorsport than they've also lost. So
Ferrari international assistance.
no one can claim that anymore.
And at least it was a reasonable amount of time to still have like a lengthy race. Anything could have happened between, it was over an hour and a half of racing, right? It was like an hour and 48 minutes or something like that. So anything could have happened between, that time and then, and caused the other teams to have to come in and pit. So Ferrari could have still capitalized on anybody's mistake had they been there to do so.
And that's the only thing that I would like to see from this is because none of us knew this was a regulation, but it is. What I'm surprised at is that there isn't a line in the regulations about when the cutoff is. Like, are we going to say that if this crash had happened with 30 minutes left or 10 minutes left even, that they would have restarted the race for a 10-minute sprint effectively? Or is there a cutoff point where they would decide, okay, we've had enough of the race? It's almost like in Formula One, where they get above half race distance, it becomes official, or NASCAR, is there a point where, okay, if we run out of time from this point on when the red flag has come out, that's it? That's the only thing I'd like to see there be an outlined process with how and when this is implemented. It's unquestionably the right call to make in this scenario, but no one wants to get a 24 hours of Le Mans where all of a sudden, with 2 laps to go, you end up having to restart the race because there was a red flag for a barrier repair. There's got to be something there to make it make sense and be a bit fairer. But on the day, Eduardo Freitas made the single best call he could have made, and it was fantastic to see that level of common sense. And it's in rare supply for the FIA, so it's great.
This is the Into the Paddock podcast.